I was very impressed by all of the charitable work that they do and how dedicated they are to that and how dedicated they were to really friendship among the nations. It's not Catholic philosophy. Philosophy that's followed comes from drawing you out. My name is Dierdre O'Donnell Griswold, and I live in Medford, which is just north of Boston, and I work in the city of Boston as a writer for a company that does health insurance for low-income people. I've only been there for a short while, and I've worked as a technical writer at several other companies in the area. It's hard I feel like I've known people from the movement for a long time. Our friend Dorothy had been speaking to some people in the movement. She had introduced us to some people, and I can't remember, we did take the trip to Turkey with Ibrahim Sayer was the leader of the trip at that time. And I can't remember whether we did that first or whether we have also been to many, many iftar dinners, all sizes, from people's homes to big dinner. There was one a couple that they've had in very big buildings in Boston. And we've known them for, I would say, since 2007, 2008. And besides the trip to Turkey, we've also had many activities at the Boston Dialogue Foundation. I think, and before Peace Islands, the group was called the Boston Dialogue Foundation, and then I guess sort of changed the name and became Peace Islands. So we've had a number of wonderful times with Turkish friends both in Turkey and here. They are all very warm and welcoming. Certainly our time in Turkey was, as has been said before, people just opened up their homes to us, really opened up their hearts to us. And I was impressed because in the trip we saw many people at home. We also visited many businesses and charitable organizations of the Hizmet movement, as well as seeing great sites in Turkey, mosques and churches, and we went to Ephesus, and so it was a wonderful balance of a very well organized experience to be there. I was sort of barely aware of the name for a long time, and I knew that this was a group of people, and I knew that they were followers, I guess, or people who listened to the words of Mr. Gülen. And I found the work they're doing both in welcoming people to the country, very important to let people know about Turkey and to know about the Muslims in Turkey. I was very impressed by all of the charitable work that they do, and how dedicated they are to that and how dedicated they were to really friendship among the nations. I haven't read a great deal of his writings, but what I have read, I am very impressed with. I think that he has a wonderful message of, certainly the education part of his message is huge, and the emphasis on science is really wonderful because it's not, I think in Western, more in America, there's this sort of cold emphasis on science where, you know, facts and science is everything, but I think that the emphasis on science that I see among Turkish people and among the followers of Mr. Gülen is more of a sort of an emphasis on facts and rigor and yes, but also a kind of awe at God's creation and how wonderful it is. And I think that that's really the best approach to science. And the sort of cold, fact-based science that some people practice here, it's not complete. It's not enough, and it's not a good or the best way to do science. So that's one thing that really impressed me. It's a very favorable image of Islam. I didn't know. I knew a little bit about Islam when I went to Turkey, and I was impressed, and I guess continue to be impressed by how, even though I'm a Christian and our religions are quite different, but the values are very much the same. And the one thing that I really think is important or key is the fact that of all of the Turkish Muslims that I met in Turkey, they all were very people-focused. You felt that when you were talking to them, this great interest in you as a person. And we have a Catholic, it's not really a Catholic philosophy, but it is a philosophy that is followed by many Catholics called personalism, where there is an emphasis that each person is unique and you must interact with them as a unique, almost a representation of God, or from in the image of God, we say. And I got that feeling very strongly from the people in Turkey. I think with Hizmet, I get much more of a sense of the community being kind of a religious community and also a kind of community of people who will go out and do works of social action and social justice. I think sometimes in the Catholic religion, and this is not of all Catholic churches, because like Islam, there are many different kind of flavors of Catholics, but there are people who they just want to stay inside and pray, which is a good thing, but they need to get out in the world and be active as well. And I think that's one difference between Hizmet and between some people in my own faith. I mean, I think the interfaith dialogue is really important, because I think that's one way where you can really build a good community. The more people know one another, they know one another as people, and the more they learn about each other's faiths, the less likely people are to shut people out. And so that's very important in building community, I would say. So I think it's important for every faith to be involved in interfaith dialogue. It's certainly really enriching from my point of view to get to know Muslims and people of other faiths. It's really wonderful to really understand the differences and to really appreciate the diversity, and also to see how many areas we have in common, particularly in values. And because Christians, Muslims, and Jewish people are all Abrahamic faiths, there are many surprising similarities too, even among some of with the scriptures and in other aspects of the faith as well. Certainly, I think the 5 pillars of Islam, and I don't name them right now, but have many similarities in what the church asks, what my church asks of people to do. I think there are a great many significant contributions. I mean, certainly in Turkey, the emphasis on education, and also all of the charitable work, both in Turkey. When we were there had been a bad earthquake, and there was a lot of emphasis on helping those people, bringing them aid and so forth. And also the work that's done around the world is important. Also, the emphasis on interfaith dialogue, again, is extremely important, and the emphasis on doing good, peaceful. Another important thing is that it's very peaceful. There's no violence. There's no even tendency toward that. And the fact that if we work together, we educate one another, and we talk to one another, that's how you solve problems, not by violence. I think the education too is also goes along hand in hand with the personalism, the individual, because the way every person needs to develop. If somebody doesn't get a chance to develop, they're not going to be able to contribute to the world as much as they could, and that's where education is really important too. I think that the people realize that education is key to developing people. You can't be, as I said before, you can't really be the person you were meant to be without a good education. I think the word comes from draws you out of yourself, and it brings you to understand the world. And so I think that's the most important thing. The other thing too is, if you are, and we're seeing this in our country today too, if you are going to have a democratic government, people have to be educated, because people have to understand about voting and to know who they're voting for and what they're voting on. And so that, just in sort of a broad sense, is also a very important function of education. And I think at one point you mentioned the sciences and the humanities, and I think that they're both very important. Obviously science, so many things are the result of science, but the humanities also are important in helping people understand one another. And I think they're essential in helping people to really function as citizens in a democracy as well. My knowledge of the Muslim charitable work comes mainly from what I learned in Turkey from Hizmet. And they seem to be very active there. I think, as we were saying before, Catholic charities and other Catholic groups also do the same thing, going into other countries. And again, I think that again, treating everybody that you see, helping everybody that you see, no matter what their faith is, really brings that sense of the positive values of religion to them. So it's another way of spreading the good news, we call it, or the good ideas to people.
The Hizmet movement really does well the idea of being accepting. It's not just they tolerate you, they accept you for who you are and try to help you to feel comfortable when you're with them.
Fethullah Gulen, I believe, began the Hizmet movement with education largely in mind. And it was his particular vision to develop schools and universities which concentrate on education with the modern world in mind and with international connections in mind.